Our next guest says that she returned to South Africa on Friday, the 13th of March, after attending the Arnolds Classic Model Search USA in Columbus, Ohio. Now, she went into self-quarantine after President Cyril Ramaphosa requested that all those who visited high-risk countries to isolate themselves and get tested. 23-year-old Isjeanne du Toit has been in self-quarantine in Pretoria for 8 days now, and she joins us now via Skype. Isjeanne, good morning. Thanks for speaking to us here on Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Isjeanne, let's start by talking about your trip to the USA. You obviously went to attend the Arnolds Classic Model Search competition in Ohio. I believe there was no audience for that particular competition, but you were allowed to participate. Just tell us more about all of that.
So, firstly, I got woke up 5 o'clock in the morning before I got to get on the flight, and they announced that it's been completely cancelled due to coronavirus. And we tried to get flights and everything to go earlier because due to that, the show got moved to the day before. And that caused that when my flight will land, that the show has already started. So we didn't even know if I will make it in time. And that's why they said no audience allowed, and athletes still are allowed to compete. So the journey has been challenging, very stressful as well, but we made it just in time to the show, which I am very grateful for. And I still went on there and did my thing. The journey was amazing to see how different the country is from ours, and their methods of doing things are incredible. Like, it's so different from South Africa. So it was an amazing place to see and visit. And I'm so grateful I made it to my show and I got to place 7th in the world. So I'm very, very pleased about that.
Isjeanne, at the time of your travel, there had already been stories and, of course, lockdowns even in cities such as Wuhan around this coronavirus pandemic. Why did you decide to go ahead and participate in that particular event?
So everything was already planned. I spent so much money already for the trip, and it was a risk that I had to take. It was life-changing for me. So to know that there isn't any lockdown yet in America, and knowing that I didn't even know there were cases in South Africa yet. Only when I did my connecting flights in London, I found out there's the first case in South Africa. So I just took the risk. I prayed very hard that everything will work out, and it did. And 5 hours before I came back to South Africa, Trump decided to make a lockdown on New York. So I know there's a reason why I got to come back in South Africa. So I just took the risk. I needed to prove to myself I need to be on that stage. So it was a personal decision.
So you speak about that flight in transit to London and then Chicago, but what sort of screening was done right from the time that you left South Africa and other airports that you had stopped at as well? What was the process like?
To be honest, it was just a normal flight to America. They didn't do any screenings. The only thing that was different is a lot of people wore masks, extra sanitizing, wash your hands more. People were more cautious of touching and being around people close to each other. And then on my way back, I only got to have a screening at London Heathrow. That was the only time. They just scanned my forehead and then they said, okay, you are clear. I went further through security, got on the plane, and I came to South Africa to OR Tambo. And there also they didn't do any screenings at all. Everyone is just wearing face masks and sanitizing.
So were there any precautions given, or were you simply just given that screening test and let go? At what point did the issue of self-quarantine come into place?
So as soon as I got back into the country, the cases were already very high for South Africa. And because the lockdown happened for New York, I just decided, okay, we need to go in self-quarantine. And then the president also announced it. And I have a whole community from Rise by Heli T-Rex. We're a group of girls who train together. And our coach also warned us and said, like, it's better to go into self-quarantine, stay safe, especially me from coming from high risk. I don't want to cause anyone to get the virus, or I don't even know if I have it already, and it's only been 8 days. So self-quarantine was just the best option to do, social distancing, and it's just better to rather stay away from the people at the moment because we don't actually know what's going on.
So, Isjeanne, with regard to self-isolation, what has been the process for you? Have you had to get tested, and have you received back your test results? And how has the quarantine been like? What have you been doing?
So I have phoned to report that I was at USA, and it is important to do so. We shouldn't hide anything. And they said to me, after I've self-isolated for 14 days and I haven't experienced any symptoms yet, I can go out again. But if I can only go to the hospital as soon as I have experiencing any symptoms. So for now, I am healthy. I can breathe normally. I can exercise. My daily routine would be getting up, exercising from home training, which we have. Our coach has set up a whole home training thing for us on immune boosting. Everything has changed. Our diet has changed to immune boosters, more vitamin D, because it's good to be in the sun and it's good. And then I do home training. So I just get up, I do my home training, do basic cardio and some body weight exercises. And then I would eat my food, being healthy, and I study project personal training. So because I can't go out and do lashes anymore, I can't go do promotions. I used to do events. I just have to sit here at home. So I started doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku, knitting. I have a whole, like I said before, I have a whole community so that we stay sane, if we don't go insane in this time. I speak out a lot more with family, friends, and yesterday night we made Play-Doh. So we are doing funny things here when you're in isolation, but it's not going to stop me from just living life and going forward. We don't have to be scared about anything.
Well, Isjeanne, thanks so much for sharing your experience with us. You have another 6 days to go because we understand you're only in day 8. Isjeanne du Toit is a 23-year-old, and she's been under self-quarantine for 8 days now. She attended the Arnolds Classic Model Search in the United States in Columbus, Ohio. And, of course, she has had to self-isolate and will be awaiting. If she doesn't show any symptoms for the next 6 days, she'll be free to go